Chapter 11. Thursday morning. Theo was wide awake when his alarm rang at 7:30. There was a knot in his stomach, and he was certain he was too sick to go to school. He stared at the ceiling and waited for his illness to grow worse, to hopefully become a full-blown bout of nausea that would make him heave and vomit. His head hurt too, and he was convinced a migraine was on its way, though he had never had one. Minutes passed. Unfortunately, his condition did not deteriorate. How could he walk to school and face all the suspicion? How could he survive the jokes and snide comments and teasing? If there had ever been a perfect day to skip school, play hooky, call in sick, whatever, then it was today. Judge moved first. He popped up from under the bed and was ready to go. Theo envied him. His day would be spent at the office, sleeping next to Elsa's desk, roaming from one room to the next, hanging out in the kitchen looking for food, and napping in Theo's office, waiting for him to arrive from school. No worries, no stress, no fears of someone stalking him and plotting more mischief. What a life, thought Theo. A dog's life. It didn't seem fair. Theo sat at the edge of his bed, waited for a moment in hopes that he would throw up, but he soon admitted that he was feeling better. Judge just stared at him. There were footsteps outside his door, then a gentle knock. "Theo," his mother said softly, "are you awake?" "Yes, ma'am," Theo said in a fake, scratchy voice, as if he might be taking his last breath. So he opened the door, stepped inside, and sat next to him on the bed. "Here, I brought you a cup of hot chocolate." Theo took the cup and held it with both hands. The aroma was strong and delicious. "Did you sleep well?" she asked. She was still in her heavy bathrobe and her favorite pink fuzzy slippers. "Not really," Theo said. "I had this nightmare that wouldn't go away." "Tell me about it," she said as he tousled his hair. Theo took a sip of the hot chocolate and smacked his lips. It was a really weird dream that made no sense at all, and it seemed to go on and on. I was running from the police, lots of police, with guns and everything. I was on my bike getting away, leaving them behind, when they shot out both tires. So I threw the bike in a ditch and ran through the woods. They were getting closer and closer, bullets hitting trees all around me. And they had dogs too, and the dogs were right on my heels. Someone yelled, "Hey, Theo, over here." I ran to the voice, and it was Pete Duffy in a pickup truck. So I jumped in the back of the truck, and we took off, bullets still flying all around us. He was driving like a maniac, slinging me all over the back of the truck, and suddenly we were on Main Street, and people were yelling, "Go, Theo, go," and stuff like that. Police cars were behind us with lights and sirens. We smashed through the roadblock and were about to get away when the cops shot all four tires. Theo paused, took another sip. Judge was staring at him with only one thought: where's breakfast? "Did you get away?" his mom asked. Seemed to be amused by his story. "I'm not sure. I don't think I finished the dream. We were running through some alleys, and every time we turned a corner, there were more policemen, all of them blasting away. It was like a small army was after us. There was a SWAT team and even a helicopter overhead. Pete Duffy kept saying, 'They're not going to catch us, Theo. Just keep running.' We ran through the courthouse, which was full of people, in the middle of the night, and we ran towards the river. For some reason, we decided to cross the bridge. About halfway over, we saw a SWAT team on the other side coming right at us. We stopped, looked behind, saw cops and dogs everywhere. Pete Duffy said, 'We're going to jump, Theo.' And I said, 'I'm not jumping.' So he crawled over the railing and was about to jump when he got hit with bullets from all sides. He screamed and fell over, and I watched him fall until he hit the water. There were people on the river in boats, and they cheered when he made a splash. When they started yelling, 'Jump, Theo, jump.' The police were closing in from both sides. The dogs were growling, sirens blaring away, gunfire. I held up my hands like I was going to surrender. Then in a split second, I jumped over the railing, which is about 8 feet high. But this was a dream, okay? I looked like an Olympic diver flying through the air. On the way down, I started doing flips and twists and turns. Don't know where I learned all those moves. The river was far below and getting closer and closer. He took another sip. What happened? He asked. Don't know. That dive lasted for a long time, and I woke up before I hit the water. I tried to go back to sleep to finish the dive, but couldn't get it to work. That's a pretty cool dream, Theo. Lots of action and excitement. It wasn't very cool at the time. I was scared to death. You even you ever been shot by the police? No, I have not. You are going to think about some possible enemies who might be carrying a grudge of some sort. Theo took another sip and thought for a moment. Come on, Mom. Kids don't have enemies, do they? Look, we all have people we don't like and don't like us, right? But I can't think of a single person I'd call an enemy. Fair enough. Who's the kid who dislikes you the most? Betty Ann Hockner. And what's the story? We had a debate several months ago, boys versus girls. The issue was gun control. Things got pretty heated, but it was all fair. We won the debate, and Sue was really upset. I heard later that Sue called me a jerk and a cheap shot artist. I've seen her almost every day since then, and she gives me these looks like she would love to slit my throat. You should reach out to her, Theo. No way. And why not? I'm afraid she'll slit my throat. Could she slash her tires and throw a rock through a window? Theo shook his head and thought for a second. Not really. She's a nice girl, but she's not very popular. I kind of feel sorry for her. She's not our suspect. Then who is? I don't know. I'm still thinking about it. You better get ready for school. I feel pretty lousy, Mom. Nausea and a headache. I think I'd better stay in bed today. She smiled, tousled his hair again, didn't believe a word of it, and said, What a surprise. You know, Theo, if you didn't fake so many illnesses in order to skip school, I might believe you every now and then. School's boring. Well, it's not optional. If you want to go to law school, there's a rule somewhere that you must complete the 8th grade. Show me that rule. I just made it up. Look, Theo, today might be the bit rough. Lots of gossip and such, and probably some jokes. I know you'd rather skip it, but you can't. Bite your lip, grit your teeth, and hold your head up because you've done nothing wrong. You have nothing to be ashamed of. I know. And keep smiling. The world is a brighter place when you're smiling. It might be hard to smile today. Theo parked his bike at a different rack, one by the cafeteria, and after he chained it, he couldn't help but look around to see if anyone was watching. This looking over his shoulder was already a habit, and he was tired of it. It was 8:20. He met April Finnemore in the cafeteria where students who arrived early on buses were allowed to meet and socialize, or have an apple juice, or to sometimes study. April was a friend, a close one, but not a girlfriend. Theo trusted her above all others, and she confided in him as well. Her home life was a constant mess with a father who came and went, a mother who was at least half crazy, if not more, and older siblings who had already fled town. April, too, wanted to leave home, but she was much too young. Her dream was to be an artist and live in Paris. How are you doing? She asked as he sat at the end of the long table, as far away from the other students as possible. Theo gritted his teeth, held up his head, and said, I'm fine. Nothing wrong with me. This stuff is all over the internet. It seems to be growing. Look, April, I can't control that. I'm innocent. What am I supposed to do about it? You want an apple juice? Sure. Theo walked across the cafeteria to a counter where cups of free apple juice were waiting. He picked up 2 and was walking back to April when a group of 7th grade boys began chatting. Guilty, guilty, guilty. Theo looked at him and flashed his braces, offered a fake smile as if he found it humorous. The biggest loudmouth was a kid named Phil Jacoby, a tough kid from a bad part of town. Theo knew him, but they did not hang out. A few other kids joined in. Guilty, guilty, guilty. But by the time Theo sat down and the chants were dying, the fun was over. Creeps, April hissed as she glared at the boys. Just ignore them, Theo said. If you fight back, it just gets worse. More kids arrived and backpats hit the tables. What will the police do next? April asked, almost in a whisper. Finish their investigation, Theo said softly, glancing around. There are no fingerprints on the tablets found in my locker, so they figure the thief is pretty smart. They were going to dust my locker, but now they figured that was a waste of time. You got to keep in mind, April, this is a minor crime. The cops have much more important matters to worry about, like finding Pete Duffy. Exactly. Plus, they have drug cases and more serious crimes to investigate. They won't spend a lot of time on this burglary. It's not that serious. Unless you're the accused. Don't tell me you're not worried about getting framed for this. Sure, I'm worried. But I'm trust the police and the courts. You gotta trust the system, April. I'm innocent and I know it. The police will find the real thieves and I'll be off the hook. Just that simple? Yes, I think. The gang of 7th graders walked behind them. Bill Jacoby said loudly, Hey, you guys, watch your backpacks. The other thief is in the room. His buddies howled with laughter but kept walking. The other students glared at Theo. A couple moved their backpacks closer. Oh boy, Theo said, defeated. I guess I'll have a new nickname. Creeps. Theo found it difficult to bite his lip, grit his teeth, and hold up his head. This would indeed be a long day. The fight broke out a few minutes later as Theo was closing his locker. The troublemaker was another loudmouth, a kid named Baxter, who was in Madame Monique's 8th grade homeroom and had a locker not far from Theo's. Baxter walked behind Theo and in a loud voice said, Hey, what up, Jailbird? This got a few laughs, but not nearly as many as Baxter was looking for. He stopped and grinned at Theo. Baxter's mistake was opening his big mouth when Woody happened to be closing his own locker. He whirled around and angrily said, Shut up. Nobody messed with Woody. He had 2 older brothers who played football and loved karate and were known to fight for any reason. Woody's home was in a constant state of physical conflict with broken windows, furniture, and sometimes bones. As the youngest, Woody had been the tackling dummy and the punching bag, and he actually enjoyed a good fight with someone his own size. He was never a bully, but often he was too quick to throw a punch or threaten a classmate. But Baxter had his own tough guy reputation, and he could not back down with people watching. Don't tell me to shut up, he shot back. If I want to call Theo a jailbird, then I'll call him a jailbird. Woody was already walking towards Baxter, and at that point, serious trouble was inevitable. Excitement gripped the hallway as the other students realized that, like a couple of gunslingers, neither of these two would back down. Theo glanced up and down the hall in hopes of seeing Mr. Mount or another teacher. There was no adult in sight at that crucial moment. He said, It's okay, Woody, it's okay. But it wasn't okay with Woody. He glared at Baxter and said, Take it back. Baxter said, No thanks. When you steal and get arrested, then in my book, you're a jailbird. He was still talking tough, but his eyes were also getting bigger. His left eye, though, was about to get closed. Woody lunged with a right hook and landed perfectly on Baxter's face. Baxter, to his credit, managed to land a solid punch before both boys locked each other up in death grips and tumbled to the floor. Fights were rare at the middle school, and the good one was not to be missed. A crowd gathered around instantly. Down the hall, someone yelled, A fight, a fight. Woody and Baxter were sliding all over the tiled floor, clawing and scratching like 2 cats. Baxter's sidekick was a runt named Griff, and evidently he knew what the other boys knew. It would only be a matter of seconds before Woody gained the upper hand and began working on Baxter's face. So Griff, to protect his friend, made the dumb move of joining the fray. He growled some sort of impromptu battle cry and launched himself into Woody's back. Theo and the rest of the crowd gawked in disbelief. Fighting carried an automatic suspension from classes. The student manual was clear, and every teacher stressed the evils of fighting. The punishment handed down by Miss Gladwell was flexible and depended on the circumstances. A push and shove match on the playground might result in 1 day suspension with 3 extra hours in study hall. A full-blown fight fist with busted lips and bloody noses might result in a 3 day suspension, no after-school activities, and 1 month of probation. Theo was not a fighter. His last scuffle had been in 4th grade when he and Walter Norris got in a heated wrestling match at the city swimming pool. But as he stood there frozen and watched the fight right in front of him, he suddenly had the urge to join in. After all, his friend Woody was slugging it out in defense of his honor. The least Theo could do was go to his rescue, and perhaps a suspension was not the end of the world. His parents would go berserk, but they would have eventually settled down. What did his mother say last night? The first thing you do is fight back, attack. When you're right, you never back down. Ike would be proud. Sometimes a guy has got to fight. Theo dropped his backpack, yelled something that's not even he understood, and jumped into the pile. That's the end of chapter 11.